I was away yesterday morning, not on holiday, that was Monday and Tuesday, but instead I was on a train whizzing up to Lee, preparing for GB News' first People's Forum for the leadership candidates. Yesterday at 5 p.m, it was the turn of Liz Truss to face the questions of straight-talking GB News viewers in the heart of the Red Wall seat of Lee. Labour for 100 years, once held by Andy Burnham, no less. In 2019, Boris Johnson turned it blue. It will be crucial. It will be a crucial test of the next Prime Minister to hold places like Lee, if they want to achieve a decent majority in 2024, that is. The audience questions last night were sharp, respectful, but challenging. Exactly the sort of robust scrutiny that is so needed in this contest. Exactly the sort of robust scrutiny that other leadership contests could really have done with in years past. Small boats, the carers allowance and grooming gangs all featured prominently. But the overarching question of the cost of living was at the forefront of this audience's mind, as it is at the forefront of the mind of most of the people in the country right now. What on earth will the next Prime Minister do to help alleviate the pain of soaring global energy prices? This is what Liz Truss had to say.
We'll have a temporary moratorium on the green energy levy, which will save everybody money on their fuel bills. But what we also have to do, Alistair, is address the root cause of why energy costs are so high. That's why it's important we stand up to Vladimir Putin and end this war in Ukraine. And that's why it's also important that we work with the energy companies to bring the prices down.
Some of those lines we've obviously heard before, that moratorium on those green levies, reversing the national insurance tax hike, all in an emergency budget perhaps as soon as September. But there was a further interesting line there from Liz Truss, working with energy companies to bring down costs. That was new information we learned yesterday. And, of course, today, the Chancellor Nadhim Zahawi and Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng, two Truss backers, I hasten to add, are meeting with the energy companies in their current roles to explore options. Watch this space, perhaps. Well, another key question came on the kind of a team that a Truss premiership would build. Who would be in cabinet? How much power will they have? And what implications will this have for future policy? Truss set out 3 clear rules for her new appointments to the cabinet. First, that any such appointment would have to be competent. Second, that they share her true Conservative values and are, of course, willing to stand up to Whitehall. And thirdly, that they're loyal, not spending their time leaking and briefing to the media, but instead getting on with the job. Well, was that loyalty point there a subtle dig at her opponent in this race? Who's to say? But fascinatingly, we did hear one name who Truss would say had said she would want in her top team, Kemi Badenoch.
Kemi, I've worked with her as Women and Equalities Minister. You know, we've taken on a lot of the agenda of people who were trying to deny that women were women and so on. So I think she's absolutely brilliant, and I would definitely want her as part of my team if I am successful.
Kemi in the cabinet. New information we learned yesterday on GB News. An interesting signal in terms of policy direction and perhaps a desire to refresh government, make it feel different and with new fresh faces around that cabinet table and perhaps a clearer ideological vision. Well, part of that question of ideology also came in the form of Truss's attitude to what's known as the online safety bill. The bill as it stands would create a new category of speech it defines as legal but harmful, creating a peculiar situation whereby what is legal offline could become illegal online. While Truss said she supported elements of the bill that protected children, she said she would want to change the bill when it came to regulating the speech of adults.
What I want to make sure the online safety bill does is protect the under 18s from content that is damaging. And I have 2 daughters who are aged 13 and 16, and I worry about some of the material that they can access online. I also worry about the impact of social media on them before they are yet fully adult and fully able to take responsibility. I very strongly agree with you, though, where it's about adults being able to speak freely, they absolutely should be, and it should be the same online as offline. That's a really important principle, and I'll make sure that the online safety bill does reflect that.
Information we learned yesterday on GB News as well. A significant moment, the first time we've heard her criticise this move to regulate the internet, at least for adults. So not just a tax cutter, but perhaps a red tape cutter too. Ultimately, this event was significant not just because of what was promised, but also because of what was not. With candour, Liz Truss spoke to a waspy woman in the audience who was calling for compensation as a result of having lost out due to the equalisation of the retirement age last decade. She didn't have an answer that the waspy woman wanted to hear. But what she said she wanted to be was honest about that.
To be honest with you, and I have to be honest, on the specific case of the waspy women, I don't think it was handled very well at the time. I completely admit that, and there wasn't enough respect shown. I very much agree with that. But I think where we are now, it will be very difficult to go back. I just don't want to make promises I can't keep, to be absolutely honest with you.
A commendable frankness, perhaps. Well, finally, we also heard a further new piece of information. A significant new piece of information, perhaps the most important of the night, all about the Foreign Secretary's relationship with Larry the cat.
I already have an extremely positive relationship with Larry. I think he frequently sidles up to me. I think I'm one of his preferred cabinet ministers. And one of the many reasons I want to be Prime Minister is I want to build on that friendship that we already have.
An interesting reason to go for the top job, perhaps proving the Foreign Secretary has a bit more of a sense of humour than she's often given credit for. Either that, or she takes the issue of Larry the cat very seriously indeed.